I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Lori Berg. I'm the Vice Chair of the School Board. I'm just opening the meeting today until we voted for our Chair of the School Board. So we need to start with an approval of the agenda for tonight. So we'll need a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
I so.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against, same sign. Motion passes. The next order of business is to swear in the new school board members. So for Josh and Jen and Corey, I have the oath here. If you guys would like to stand, I'll stand with you. And I think we'll all do it together, if that's okay with you. I'll try to chop it up in short, but if I say too many words, I'll repeat it. Repeat after me, please. I affirm that I will support.
I affirm that I will support
The Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States,
The Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
And that I will faithfully carry out,
and that I will faithfully carry out,
according to law,
according to law,
the duties of the office of school board member
the duties of office of school board member
of Independent School District 2144
of Independent School District 2144
in the counties of Chisago and Washington.
in the counties of Washington and Chisago,
Oh, he reversed it on you. To the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations, you guys. And I don't know if Jeff and Brenda want to say anything, but we welcome you guys. And I want to first of all say thanks for your bravery in running for the school board. Like, I think that's a brave thing to do, to put yourself out there, and for being willing to serve our school district. It's a wonderful place to be. So welcome. And please don't be afraid to ask questions as we go, because I know it's a lot of new learning. We're glad you're here. Okay, so now we need to get officers in place for this year. So I'll start by asking for nominations for chairperson of the school board.
I'd like to nominate Lori Berg for Chair of School Board. Here's a couple of reasons why, just because we have new boards, so we kind of need to know. Lori has been in place since I've been on board. She's shown leadership as the vice chair for years. Always comes prepared on topics, does a lot of research, knows what we're talking about, and gives you the information if you need it. Knows the district is well supported, understands every aspect of the district. Has also been honored by MSBA for her leadership in school board and leadership. So I'd like to nominate her.
A second.
Okay, so there's a nomination for me to be chairperson of the school board. I'll call for nominations for chair once again. Is there any other nominations for the board chair? I'll ask again, are there any other nominations for the board chair? Okay, hearing no other nominations, I guess I'm school board chair. We don't have to vote on it since there's no other nominations. Thank you all for trusting me with that big job. I'll do my best. I'll make mistakes, but we'll do this together. Now I'll take nominations for the vice chair of the school board.
I would like to nominate Jeff Lindeman for vice chair.
There's a nomination for Jeff Lindeman for vice chair. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? I'll ask one more time. Are there any nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, there's no vote needed. Jeff, you're the vice chair of the school board.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next, I'll take nominations for the clerk position on the school board. Any nominations for the clerk?
I make a motion for Jen Penzen-Sadler as clerk.
There's a motion for Jen Penzen-Sadler as the clerk. Are there any other nominations for clerk?
I'd like to nominate Corey Spencer due to the accessibility. I know he would be able to make it. Jody wouldn't have to run to his house.
So there's a nomination for Corey Spencer as clerk for the school board. Are there any other nominations for clerk? Okay, being that there's two nominations, one for Jen and one for Corey, it'll call for a vote. And we do need to make a public record of everyone's vote in this instance. And so if Jody is sort of the acting clerk right now, we'll keep track of who votes for whom. We'll need a majority in order to elect a clerk. So Jeff, let's start with you.
My vote's for Jim Penza Sadler.
Okay.
Is
I'm
that
gonna,
how you want it, or?
yeah. I'll vote for Corey in this instance, just because I know he lives close by and works close by and can get here easily. But for no other reason, I don't know either of these new board members yet.
I vote for Corey Spencer just because accessibility is really important. I don't know how accessible everybody else is.
I'm gonna go for Corey as well for your experience with the boards.
Vote for myself.
It's okay.
And I'll also vote for myself.
Okay, so that makes 4 votes for Corey Spencer and 2 for Jen. So Corey will be our acting clerk for this 1 year. Congratulations, Corey. Now we need a nomination for treasurer for the school board. And I would like to nominate Brenda Carlson to remain treasurer of the school board. Are there any other nominations for treasurer of the school board? I'll ask again, any more nominations for treasurer? And one last time, any other nominations for treasurer? Okay, Brenda Carlson remains our treasurer of the school board. Congratulations, Brenda. All right, so that takes care of the officers. We'll move on to open forum. And there's no one signed up. So we'll move down to communications. So let's see. Board committee updates.
Robin first.
Oh, Robin first. Sorry,
Okay.
Robin, and you're clicking away trying to get to the right page.
Well, that's Michelle.
Oh, Michelle's clicking.
No worry. But thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I don't know if you were able to review the financial picture that was out there. I will say this is a pretty early time in the month for us to get a financial picture, so I was still working on it today. You can see what we do is compare this year to last year's budget and the percentage, and in the general fund, our revenues are matching exactly, which is kind of amazing, actually. Our expenditures a little bit higher this year, and the reason is of that construction and our turf expenses were brought into this year, so we'll change that when we do a revised budget. So right now they're showing a little bit higher because they were spent in this year instead of last year. Food service, our revenues are a little less than last year, and a lot of that has to do with the federal funds that we had. We had a lot more federal money last year because of, still because of COVID. And so we're showing a little bit less this year, and expenditures a little bit higher there. So we're still doing pretty good in food service. Community ed or community service, our revenues are much higher this year, which makes a lot of sense. We're actually opening up, and I think we have things going full on right now. And of course, expenditures showing a little bit higher as well, which coincides with having everything open up. Debt service, we have made 1 payment in our debt service fund. Our debt service is kind of like our mortgage fund. And we have our second payment will be made in February. So then we have received all the revenue already, recognized that, and so we just have the expenditures left. Anybody have any questions on the financial report for this month? It's actually for December. It's as of December 31st. If not, I would also like to offer to our 3 new board members that I would be more than willing to sit down and go through school finance with you. I will warn you, I can talk about it for hours, but we can either do it alone, individually, or we can do it as a group if you'd like to. So kind of think about that. I did it with Jeff and also with Sarah before, so I've got a whole bunch of stuff to share.
It's good.
Robin, if you might make me on the spot a little bit, from this document, what would new board members expect to glean? Like what might stand out to them as something to be?
Basically, what I'm showing here is that last year, you can see the percentage of budget to actual that we're at compared to this year. So we've got the approved budget in there, the actual year to date, and then the remaining balance, and giving us that percentage, and then just comparing it to last year's.
And you guys, the biggest thing is, like, when I'm looking at it now that we're not in like COVID, was the food service and community ed, because in COVID, that got demolished. So the biggest thing is we want to see that keep increasing and get back to what it was. So those are the big things that I look at. General fund, obviously, but getting that back and, you know, because all last year they had free food service. So this is the first year that that's actually.
What percent are we into the year? Is there a percentage that we're?
Well, if you look
End of
at
the
it,
year?
technically, we're 50% into the fiscal year.
Yeah.
But really, like, our teacher salaries don't start until, you know, September 1st, so we're not 50% with salaries there, and so 41 is, that's probably right about on for December.
Any other questions for Robin?
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Board committees. We had board committees that have met since our last meeting, which feels like it was just yesterday, but it was about 2 weeks ago.
We have our finance advisory board this coming Wednesday. Because it's been only 2 weeks. We've been having it. I have
Just an update, the 17th of January is our next para meeting. And Paras will be bringing their wishes or to us the next go around. So on the 17th, and Brenda and Laura will be replacing Sarah and Danny.
And that was just now, just because you guys don't have any experience and they're in the middle of negotiations. That was it.
I hope we're kind of towards the end-ish of it.
I hope so. I hope so. Hopefully we're at the end of it.
Yeah.
And just because we've been on negotiations before and we didn't feel it was right, but those guys did right.
But that will change.
Yeah.
Once we make our committee assignments.
Yeah.
Okay, an enrollment snapshot was on board book. Is there anything particular to talk about our enrollment, Dean? Anything specific?
Yeah, I guess what I'll say for the board members is our enrollment, we budgeted $32.95 for our enrollment. So anytime we're above $32.95, that's a good thing. But we started the year at, we kind of look at enrollment on October 1st to say that's kind of about as settled as it's going to be when it comes to the students that transferred over the summer months and that type of thing starting out the school year. So on October 1st, we were at 3351. So to see our enrollment tends to trend downwards throughout the school year because we typically we have seniors that are starting to recognize they may not graduate on time based upon credits. So they're trying to find options elsewhere is a larger chunk sometimes of why our enrollment decreases during the school year. You know, we might see that 3325 continue to trend downwards as the year goes. But as long as we stay above 3295, that's a good thing because that's what we budgeted. Also, if a student transfers, let's say on November 1st to some other program or other school, we do get their enrollment from September 9th until, you know, November 1st. And that's a partial payment then from the state for us in that regard. So if we can hang on to them as long as possible, that's great. If they can be here all year, that's certainly better. But we certainly want to come in above what we had budgeted. And we're continuing to do that. But we will continue to pay attention to enrollment. So.
Thanks, Dean. And then we're down to superintendent update.
I don't have any updates other than what we'll talk about later on here tonight, but did want to let you know, apologies to the board here, we are not live streaming right now. We don't know why, because it's worked in the past, but it's not working again tonight. We are recording the meeting so that the meeting will be posted on the website after tonight. It takes about a few hours for it to download, but we will post the meeting. So the live stream, for whatever reason,
It's not going to YouTube, so.
it's not pushing up to YouTube like it normally does. So we are recording, and normally when we live stream from here, it does push that out, but it's not tonight. So apologies for that. We're going to continue to try to figure out why it works one month, but not the next when we haven't changed anything.
I've had 2 emails
Yeah.
from outside world
Just letting us know.
wanting to know why they canceled.
Oh,
So that's all I have for my update.
okay, thanks, Dean. Okay, so we're down to our annual business. These are things that typically take place in our January board meeting. So we need to set our school board meeting dates. And we've had some discussion about having more work sessions, just being that we need to make a new plan in regards to the levy. We need to do a superintendent search and some of those things. So attached, we have some options and we certainly want your input about what makes the most sense. So I asked if they could put together a regular monthly meeting and then some proposed work sessions. And then we need to decide, how often do we want to have these work sessions? Do we want them to be, like at a typical time that a board meeting would be at? Would we rather chunk them together, like a couple of hours at a different time of day? Really, we could do whatever we want as a board, whatever works for our schedules. So if you click into the attachment we have, there's the column with the regular monthly meetings and then some proposed work sessions. And really, I'm looking for input. The regular meetings, we also need to talk about, just in case there's certain dates where it's a conflict for a lot of us, because of course we always need a quorum if the board here. So I'll open it up for you guys to give me some feedback. First of all, about the regular monthly meetings, I can say right away that I will not be at the February 25th meeting if we keep that date. I'm out of town. So, and I believe Robin's out of town as well. So we talked about potentially changing that February date right off the bat. Any other comments or any other conflicts?
I just have a question. The regular monthly meeting and a work session, is it the same operationally, like we make motions at the work sessions, or is it?
No.
Is the work session just so that we can meet and talk about?
Typically, they are different.
Okay.
Typically, there isn't an open forum session at
Sure.
the work session. It really is a time for the board to say, what do we need to wrestle with? What do we need to talk about? So they are different.
So for example, if you were to have a working session talking about the format for superintendent interview and how that all will work, that whole thing, you might meet on, let's say, March 13th and then have a conversation about that. You might make some decisions on March 30th. So you have a conversation about the overall budget, the proposed budget. You might study it the first meeting of the month and then take action on it at the second meeting of the month. So the idea that I put together for you is that I put a date for every month. That could be a work session, but that doesn't mean you as a board need to have a meeting every month for a work session. It just really depends on what you want to do. The other thing, as I sent it out last Friday for you just to review, work sessions also are ones where we aren't taking input, we aren't from the public, we aren't making motions and transacting business. So you could consider having those meetings at 5 or 5:30. One of the reasons why we've had meetings, regular board meetings at 6 is because we do want people to be able to travel back from work and that type of thing, be able to get to a regular board meeting should they want to attend. If you so choose, you could do your board work sessions earlier, so you're not here later that night, and that type of thing. Also, if you're wanting employees of the district maybe to come in and be a part of the discussion or presentation to you, that might work well for them to be able to stay here after work and come right into a work session with you. So I put that in the notes over the weekend as you saw that. It's just something for you to consider. You also could consider not setting all the work session dates for the year and setting them as you go. One thing we do need to do, obviously, is post those minimum of 3 days prior to the work session taking place. So that really shouldn't be a problem. And like I said, in terms of the public being available, they can come and observe a work session for sure, but there's not any input process during that. So
Will those be recorded or not necessarily?
They haven't been in the past. You as a board haven't recorded those in the past because they're really remember, this is the board meeting.
Yeah, I don't think we want them recorded. This is our only chance we get to actually just talk.
The public can attend to.
Yeah, they can.
They certainly
We
can.
don't have to record it.
This is the board's meeting held in public, and that's really what this is. So you conduct your business how you like to conduct your business, and set the times and dates how you feel works best. So
I like the idea of a work session because I just think it gives us kind of usually some information and some input actually to an agenda item coming up that I think it's so important that all 6 of us are involved in. So number one, and I think maybe meeting earlier for the benefit of having staff there. I don't know how early we can go, but I do think consider them your day too. I think there's some things certainly that would be helpful, but maybe not have another meeting at 6 o'clock.
I think we need to, I don't know what everybody's schedule is like.
Yeah.
I appreciate that we're taking that, but I'd rather find out what their schedules are first.
the other thing is I did set these all as Monday evenings on the work sessions. They don't have to be Monday evenings. That's just something that I did to throw it out there. Could be Tuesdays, could be Wednesdays, whatever.
Well, I don't think we have to set the rest of the year tonight. certainly as the summer goes on, I'm an advocate for later in the evening, because I work, so.
What, is a 6 o'clock still a good time?
6 o'clock works, for me personally.
Jen, what's your schedule like?
I'm not opposed to just putting the dates on the calendar. I like the idea of the work session, especially because there's 3 new people, so there might be a lot of talking involved. Right off the bat though, July and August meetings, I wouldn't be able to attend because we're deep in the fair season at that point. So, the regular meetings.
You can't,
I wouldn't be able to be there in July or August.
at the regular or the work session?
The regular monthly meetings.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
20's fair.
The July one is the fair and August is the state fair.
Fair, yeah.
Is there a way to move those to a different time that would, or a different day that would work better?
Anything other than those I mentioned?
Yeah.
I mean, there must be a range, obviously, the county fair's 4 days and the state fair, I know you're probably down there the whole dang thing, so.
But that's what we gotta
Just
do.
sooner in the
February,
month,
too.
yeah.
I thought you were
Yeah.
saying the whole month of July and the
No,
whole month
no,
of
no.
August. I'm like, oh, I don't know how we work around that.
No, those
Just
specific
those-
dates.
Gotcha.
So, are you proposing, Brenda, that we?
I'm
Kind of
actually
make it
like to
work.
hear from Corey
Work
first
day?
and then.
I like the earlier in the day option. I start my shift at 5 PM and the less vacation that I have to burn to come to a school board meeting, the better for me. But I'll go with the consensus of what works for the group too, so.
Should we have a discussion more dates, or do you want to do dates?
I think we all want a work session. I think that's.
Yes.
Definitely.
I just wonder if we should start with the regular meetings. We've got to have one every month. Try to get those firmed up before we move to the extra
Yeah.
ones, if that's okay.
Yep.
So can we start with January? January 9th, we're there, right?
Got one,
February
you're there.
23rd.
Got one.
February 23rd.
That's a
So
problem,
it's a problem.
because we're missing our finance person and our board chair.
And I can miss, but with Robin gone too, if we can find a date, but if we can't, then I just miss.
How about if we move it back to the 16th where it was? Can we do that?
I'm not here the 16th.
Oh, you're not there, okay.
But I,
Sure.
We do have
But you
Robin.
are, sure, so you could do
or I'm
that.
there, I'm not leaving until 17.
So you could do that. Any other objections
Up to
to
the board.
February 16th?
It works better for me.
That's fine.
Or is
Okay,
there a better date that you can?
no, that's okay. I mean, mine would have to be before the 13th or after the 23rd, so. So I have to look
That
at,
would leave the 9th.
do the 9th, I could do the 9th, but we don't need to change it just for me.
It gives us a
Works for me.
month. Yeah, it gives us a month.
It gives us a month if it works for other people.
Does the 9th not work for somebody?
Okay, so could we potentially move the February board meeting to the 9th then?
Corey, your work schedule okay?
Okay, thanks
Is that
you
a-
guys.
Is that motionable or is that just a thing?
Well, we'll just change it.
And then
We'll
accept-
make the motion with that change.
Oh, one.
After we figure it all
Yeah.
out.
Put all the dates together.
Yeah,
So, okay, now we're down to March, and
And you're keeping track, right?
I've got a sheet at work now.
so March, with this note here, 316, current change to 330. I wasn't sure what that meant.
And I
The
have,
current date is 3/16 that we had set previously. The thought was to change it to 3/30 potentially if you wanted a work session previous to that. Part of the thing is if you do a work session on the 16th, you could go a week before with if they wanted the regular meeting on the 16th, you could go with a work session, the week before or something like that, but that's spring break for folks.
I like Lori. Let's get the dates down and then worry about the work session dates. Can we do that?
so my issue is I looked at the 16th, thinking it was the 16th, and put a vacation in there, I'll be gone on the 23rd.
Because you were thinking the board meeting.
Because I was thinking the board meeting was gonna be on the 16th, and that kind of came about in our last meeting, that we even talked about doing a workshop, but.
So keep it on the 16th.
Yes,
Everybody
that's
okay with
fine.
that?
Keep it on the 16th.
Okay. And then should we just, I'm gonna keep going one by one. April 27th?
And I'm gonna voice and Corey can jump in, just so I think you guys know we both are involved with softball. I don't think April will be a problem, but you never know, and our dates are always changing. So I would say stay with, as long as it works for everybody, just know we might have to change, because that would take 2 of us out. If, it snows in May.
But you won't know until you're closer.
We wouldn't know until the weather, but I just want to make sure everybody knew kind of where. And usually we can make it if we're home.
As you get later in the month, better chance that you're playing.
Correct.
In Minnesota Spring.
Mhm.
Do you
Okay,
want to
so
put that
we-
one to April 20th?
So if you want to move April up, we for sure would probably make it April, just maybe.
20th is where we originally
20th.
had it set.
I like April 20th because that is, if we're outside and playing, that's a home game.
Okay.
Okay, so April's going to the 20th.
Okay.
May 25th? Everybody okay?
That section, so I can guarantee you we better be playing.
The original date that we had set there way back last year
For one
was on
second,
the-
what I have,
Yeah, well,
18th,
so
so-
sections should be Wednesday, but if they
So we
move
might
the
be-
game,
it would be Thursday.
the 18th was our original date to that, but then we talked about work sessions. We were trying to find you a work session date too. So May 18th was the original. Want to stick with it?
You want to stick with the 18th?
yes. We have the doubleheader on Friday the 19th.
Okay, June. It looks like the original was the 15th, but we talked about moving it to the 22nd because of the sessions. Any opinions? I mean, in the past on the board, years ago, when we used to have 2 board meetings a month, a lot of times during the summer, we didn't do this twice a month. That was sort of the break from all those work sessions, but we can see what we need. I'm certainly willing to meet. Maybe if we're in good shape, we won't need so many in the summer, but we'll see how it goes. But is there a preference for the 15th or the 22nd?
Date we had originally set, I believe, was the 15th.
This will be the budget month, so if you do want to do a work session to review the budget beforehand,
What would you say?
then I'd say do the 22nd, so we have time for one, but I can do either one.
Well, then let's put that one on the 22nd for that purpose, if you need to give us a budget update.
Well, just so that you can have more time to look at it before I just walk in and you approve it.
Yeah, that'd be smart, actually.
Yeah, this is approving the projected budget for the following year.
Okay, so June 22nd then, for now. July 20th.
And moving, that's the fair.
That's the fair sort of.
Oh, that's the fair now. Okay, so give me a proposal for July, Jen.
You want to move it to the 13th? No, I don't have a date there.
No.
We didn't set that yet.
We hadn't
Yeah,
set
we didn't set that yet.
Okay, if the 13th is better, let's move it to the 13th because of the fair. And then same with August, you need to change. What would be better there? 17th?
17th, rather.
Okay, is that okay with everybody else? Okay. Thank you. Now we're on to September 28th. Any objections?
September, one of the considerations, we've tried to move that back later in the month because that's when you're doing your final approval of your levy. And you'd like to get numbers in as late in the month as you can.
Okay,
I just need to make sure I have the data certified, so it gives me more chickens.
that's okay, Robin? Okay,
You
then
can do it.
October 26th. Looks like that's okay. November 16th.
That okay, Josh?
That works for me. We'll make it work.
And then December 21st. Oh, good, that's not too bad. Okay, so Jody, you have our regular dates. Should we go back,
Dean and I are both doing it
doing it?
live
doing the live?
in the drive. Yeah.
Okay. So now a broader discussion about work sessions. Do we want to set a few and then go from there? Instead of setting all of these and then finding, I'll just tell you, in the past, the reason we went away from 2 meetings a month is there were some months where it was such a light agenda. We're like, why did we all gather, talked about 2 things and left in 20 minutes? I'm not saying you can't have, I do know we need work sessions. We have a lot of challenges and things we have to face ahead, but just wondered what would be wise right now for setting work sessions. If you have any opinions about that.
My suggestion would be to break it up into 3-month chunks in the quarters. Set it for a quarter and then
second, February, March, April, May, we could set those and wait on, I know it's 3 months, but 5 kind of takes us through the school year. And I think we do have a lot of challenges ahead of us that could be useful, I guess, to meet.
Problem with setting that ahead, April and May with the weather, until we know the weather. I like the quarter, because then we're gonna know the weather moving forward. Not that we don't meet, but I wouldn't want to. I think it'll change.
So the big question then is the 6th, the 13th, and the 17th, if you decide to do it like that.
Well, now that we've changed the February meeting till the 9th, we'd be having a work session 3 days before the regular meeting. Does that make sense to people?
Unless it's topical. That's the way.
When would we know the majority of that agenda? Would we know it by the end of January?
That'd be tough.
Jody, I didn't look at Jody. I didn't look at her.
Because these aren't necessarily, these work sessions are not necessarily full agenda meetings. We might say that February meeting, we need to talk about the superintendent
Right.
search. We need to nail down the specifics, how we want it to look, and so on.
So then we could do it in
My
January,
guess.
right?
That would be my guess, that that'll be our first topic, because that's something we have to get going on first, in my opinion.
Or the 2nd of February, if you move it back a week. I'm gone most of the last half of January.
How does February 2nd then? It is
February
Groundhog
2nd.
Day, but if we're not celebrating too big on Groundhog Day, we'll have a work session.
I will be driving bus for girls hockey. So that leaves at 1:30, we could do a morning if people are available during the day. A 9 to noon or something.
Okay, but how do mornings work for those of you that are
Mornings
just,
are better than.
mornings are actually better? How about for you, Jen?
It's fine.
You teach, so,
Actually, we don't have a firm schedule for me yet,
okay.
now that I've done the full-time thing, so that's okay. So if we met on the 2nd, when you talk about morning, what time would work for you?
I don't work the night before, so 8 or 9 in the morning is fine with me.
Early is better.
It is
Even earlier?
Yeah, eight or
7?
five two.
February 2nd is the Chisago Lake Sea Day at the Capitol. But I don't know if we've sent board members on that contingent to go down there, but it is the day that the Schools for Equity and Education has the Chisago Lake schools invited down to meet legislators.
So, do they have other days? They kind of split them up, don't they? To
They give
other
the-
schools.
They give the district a day, that's how.
I guess I,
The dates are attached to board book.
yeah, they're in the.
Lori and I put them on it.
Would go with, maybe would Wednesday the 1st work?
Not for you.
Not for me. Late school.
Okay, then I think we should probably just stick with February 2nd in the morning. For our first work session, and we can talk about, and people can give input about what you think are the most important agenda items we need to talk about first. But again, I think the superintendent process is gonna be
I think at 8 o'clock.
Is that-
Earlier,
earlier. What do you guys think?
I just want to set time, so if we're gonna go 8 to 10 or 7 to 9, because then I
So
can
you
tell
can
my work
plan your-
people, I'm gonna be there at this
Ask at
time.
whatever time.
What time was the Capitol event?
I won't be able to make both. Yeah, I don't think so.
It's on, is the time on here? Oh,
No, I don't think they've set
I
up,
haven't said it, okay.
but I know from past experience, we needed to leave like earlier in the morning. I know we take it to the mountain.
And there's other occasions to go to the Capitol, that's just for the C group, right? So, we're good with that.
Well, and, I mean, Dean, are you going to be going to that?
Could have admin reps go to.
If you're looking for time suggestions, my vote would be for 7.
Okay,
I don't know if that was a suggestion.
so 7 o'clock work session on February 2nd. Should we plan at least one other March So our regular meeting in March, 16th, and we gotta work around spring break.
You said that time was 7 a.m.?
Yes.
Want to move it back away from the regular meeting,
Which one? March?
the March one.
How many again the dates of spring break, you guys?
The 6th through the 10th,
16th.
I think.
Yep.
I'll be in Florida.
I wouldn't propose spring break. I was just curious when it was. Okay, so that would mean we'd have to meet before the 6th.
Do March 2nd. The 2nd.
March 2nd?
Does
7
that
a.m.?
work? Again, a morning one.
I would argue in that one. I could start at noon on that day.
But you prefer mornings.
He's working nights.
Oh, so you,
Yeah, I get off at 4 in the morning on the 2nd. I mean, I guess we could meet. I could have a nap and then.
Josh, what's your schedule like in March?
We can do the evening on the 2nd or, I mean, I don't.
The hard part about.
We haven't started season yet, so we're good there.
What do you think,
Thursday.
Jeff, for March
Thursday.
2nd? What's your schedule?
I'm good with anything. Second. So
We-
whatever.
Yeah, we had tentatively set aside a work session already, when we were looking at our previous schedule, so we already had the second booked for a pre-board meeting that afternoon as
I
well,
saw.
because we were thinking we had a work session that day.
Yeah.
So, could stick with that date. We had a 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. board work session already tentatively on the books on the 2nd, but we could go later. Not a big deal.
Smack dab in the middle of the day. It doesn't matter to me, but it might matter to you folks.
Later that afternoon.
That's fine.
Because I work at 5, so.
If it's, yeah, I mean, it's, well, it may work.
2 o'clock on March 2nd, 2 to 4. Or 9 to 4 o'clock.
Okay. So we've got February, March. Are we good? Since April and May are squishy for Corey and Brenda, we can always add more work sessions going forward. Does that seem okay?
Okay, so I'm just gonna blank out the rest for now until we decision on that.
Okay.
So what we have down then, so everybody has it, I'm gonna go through the regular monthly board meetings, okay? Starting in January,
Okay.
January 9th, February 9th, March 16th, April 20th, May 18th, June 22nd, July 13th, August 17th, September 28th, October 26th, November 16th, December 21st. For work sessions, I have down Thursday, February 2nd at 7 a.m. and Thursday, March 2nd, 2 p.m. Got it? Okay.
Sounds good.
Can you guys send an email reminder?
Yes.
I'll send you a calendar invite that you accept and it'll be right in your calendar.
Will there be
You
coffee?
can also find them online.
Yeah.
Sure.
Copies of the stretch,
Sure.
make it work.
I was gonna offer breakfast if we were gonna do it at 7.
We'll make it work.
So then the next attachment, I asked Jody to just attach those C days at the calendar, just because I got them and I didn't want to forget. Okay, and the C membership is one of the committees that we'll talk about in just a minute.
You should say what C is.
Yes, I did talk to them at their orientation about,
Okay.
but that C is a lobbying group that lobbies the legislature for more equitable funding for schools throughout Minnesota. So,
So SEE stands for,
Schools for Equity in Education.
they use a lot of those, so speak up, because that was when I got lost, when they would use the acronyms, you guys, so if you don't understand, just ask.
And it's more about funding equity. Okay, so then the next group of things that we have to decide annually, we can do together or we can do separately. We need to choose our depositories, that means our banks. Pretty much there's several of them listed. We can use any of the banks listed. Midwest One, Chisago, Lake Area Bank, US Bank, Wells Fargo, Royal Credit Union, and St. Clair Falls Security Bank of Marine. We can use any of these or any additional depositories that we need throughout the year to accommodate our investment portfolio. Then we need to name an official newspaper. The Chisago County Press is our local paper. We do need an official paper for postings and things for board meetings. The IRS mileage rate is 65.5 cents per mile. And then our legal counsel, we're gonna list Bradwick, Roswick, and Maloney, and Anderson, Squires, and Walsberger. And then other firms as needed deemed appropriate. So we can add firms as we need them for if they have different specialties and so on. So we need one motion and a second to approve the depositories.
I'd like to split out the legal counsel for discussion. So I don't know if I need to make a motion and do that, or what's this? I want some definition as to which is our official counsel for most of our business. And I know we have one of the legal counsels that are presently involved in some of our
Right,
work. And
Yeah.
obviously, we'd like those carried on.
right. That's why we listed both of them.
So I
So,
think,
you know, we can make a motion and we can discuss.
sure,
If
if
you'd
it
like to. Would that
passes.
work?
Sure. So I'll make a motion and we'll split that out for some discussion.
Oh, split out the legal.
Yeah, just the legal part.
I think that would that need a second?
Yes.
And a vote.
Your motion is to just split and do,
I want to do all of the rest of them together and then separate out the legal for a more definition of what each of those do. There's basically two, and obviously an open-ended statement that we can use anybody we want. Is that what it says? States, so.
And that's what it always states, just so that you have the flexibility. There's times when we need a realistic lawyer, or we've needed a, so you always have the right to add whatever legal counsel you need, even though you. So we would need a second to take the legal counsel decision out of these other decisions. Otherwise, we were just gonna put them together as one motion, so.
oh, second motion separate.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Again, same sign.
Opposed?
A motion passes to take out the legal counsel decision. So should we go back? Let's make a motion. Is there a motion and a second to accept the depositories, the newspaper, and the mileage rate?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept those.
Okay, we need a second to accept those.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye. Again, same sign. Motion passes. Now we'll separately talk about the legal counsel. So Jeff, you can go ahead.
Well, I think if I don't have all the names there, but I'll just put them together as Walsberger and Associates. I think that has been our legal counsel most of the time. And I don't know how we use, I know in the past we used Maloney, but have we used Maloney recently?
We've used RSAW, so that would be the Walsberger firm. We've used them for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
With the exception of we've done some work with city government and with our construction that we've done with RRM. So Radwick, Rozak, and Maloney.
Sure. So
That's the split I would say in the past 6 years. It's probably been about 90 to 10 percentage wise. So
I'll just, for my own ease, I guess to say, because I won't look at the sheet, but Walsberger and Associates, I believe, needs to carry on with the suits that we have presently, the work that they're presently working on. And then I would, personally, I would like to see, speaking to many of our labor groups, I'd like to see Maloney and Associates be more of our official if we need counsel in negotiations and some of those things, but certainly we have openings to use either one of those firms. I would like to be as a board aware of what law firms they use for which things. My suggestion would be to use Maloney and Associates as our official more for staff and dealing with staff negotiations, those types of things. And I know we use MSBA quite often too when there's legal questions. So that's kind of where I'd like to see it. I'd like to see Walsberger continue with the present cases that they're working on or present work, and then I would like to see Maloney and Associates be more official legal firm for staff and negotiations and those types of things.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just wondering, at this meeting, do we have to spell out what each law firm is going to be used for? I mean, I could hear what you're saying. We want to know as a board.
And maybe they're obviously listed there so they can't be used.
Right.
And we wouldn't want to stop firm that's dealing with present cases right
Right.
now. That just is a very prudent thing to continue to have them do it.
Right.
But I also think there are some benefits to having a different firm maybe dealing with some other aspects of their district.
Yes.
So I don't know what's the best way to make that happen.
I think at the end of the day, we have to okay both
These-
firms along with any other firm we need.
Okay.
And then we need to talk about as a board, how we're going to move forward, specifically how we're going to use them.
So I opposed because I don't think this was the place to separate it. This was a place, and this is why it's open-ended. It's too listed and anybody else we would need. I think if we want to talk more in depth, I think is a great working session for that. But we list here, so we're really open-ended and not limited. And that's why it's in this, that's the only reason why I oppose. I don't think this is where we separate and do any limiting of any kind. If you read it, it lists both. It lists it's open-ended and anybody else we deem appropriate.
But-
So,
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think that's why we specifically worded it this way, so that we're saying we can still use him to finish up what we need him to finish up. But I also hear you, Jeff, and saying, moving forward, you want to have more discussion about specifically how we're
Yeah.
using this law.
Except in work sessions, you don't make decisions, and this is the place where decisions are made.
Right, so we
So
can talk
that was
about
I thought this was the only option really to bring it up, because this is the only option where board business can be dealt or.
Right.
but I think you can do that. If we feel we want to be more specific on who deals with what, I think that can be put on an agenda in a meeting and carry that forward. I don't think this is the working meeting to do that, or the meeting to do that. I think there's this discussion, because you have 3 new board members that have no idea what we're talking about. And I think they need to be caught up with some of the information, and that's why I don't think it should be separated at this point.
As far as division of labor.
Who covers what, right?
Okay.
Might be helpful for new board members to understand what do we involve legal counsel in.
Right.
So I think what I hear Mr. Lindman saying is that basically a reverse of what we currently have been doing. We currently use RSAW, which is Nick Walsberger's firm for pretty much everything, with the exception of construction and county government, city type things. What I'm hearing you say is reverse of that. You would see the Walsberger firm work through what current litigation or cases we're involved in, and that's it.
No, I actually, I think if there's cases that fit their best gift mix, I think that presently, like what they're working on, I think that is definitely within their.
Right.
Where I think their strengths are, and I would like to see them continued in those types of areas. But, the areas of the business of, which I think I'd be clear, but I don't know where you do that. I don't know another place we do that. I mean, we certainly can talk about why I feel that way in a work session, but I also think where do you make that decision then?
Well, I think I'd make the suggestion, and if you guys speak up, if you have something you want to say as well. I think I'd make the suggestion that this statement is okay. We're saying we're going to use Roswick and Maloney. We're also going to use Anderson, Squires, and Walsberger, or any other counselor we feel we need. And then I feel like we need to give some background, maybe at a work session, our first work session even, we can put it on the agenda, talk about the reasons why. And then if you feel like we need to have a board vote about who we're using first, for what,
Sure.
we can certainly
Do
do that.
that at another agenda item at another meeting.
Once we've caught you, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I would say I'm not in a position to be making any decisions about who we're using.
And that's what I'm wondering.
Would it be better to table the decision altogether to the next meeting?
Well, we do need to have somebody be legal counsel.
At the first meeting, you generally have to name, and that's why we try to word it as we have options with the statement.
I'll weigh in on what I feel is probably the most important portion of that paragraph, and that it's really up to Dean and Robin. They're driving the ship, so to say. So it's at their discretion who and how we use legal counsel. We as a board can obviously offer our opinions, but at the end of the day, you guys are the professionals that are responsible for the operation of the district. And I don't know that we should step in front of that. They live and breathe it every day. That's their career. If they need an official motion to accept that language, and Madam Chair, I will make that motion to accept it as it's put on here.
Yeah, I think what background you would need would be to understand from a daily standpoint, what we deal with as administrators is if the high school principal calls me and says, we have a student situation that we need legal counsel on, I don't want to be in a position where I have to reach out to the board to say, not sure what to do with that, because the board's got to let us know who we can talk
Yes,
to.
Yeah.
you need to know eventually.
If we have a situation that's involving human resources and an employee issue that we need legal counsel on, we don't want to be in a position where we're reaching out to try to figure out who we can use. But if, again, I don't know that I've seen that done, but if that's what the board's wishes are, is to have a matrix of all the different potential things that could go wrong during the school day, and then who we can utilize for those, then I think we can have that discussion. But I think as administrators, we need to be able to use our judgment and say, here's the situation we're dealing with. We need legal counsel on that. This is who we're going to reach out to. In most of those cases, what we've done in the last years is we've used Rupp, Anderson, Squires, and Walsberger for those purposes. That's the discussion that we're having. Right?
Yeah, we
Because-
certainly don't want you to be in a situation where you're like, oh, I gotta call a school board member to find out what lawyer I can call. I don't think that would be any of our intentions.
I think this language is open enough that as time goes on, if we were to find a different firm, we're going to do that. I think the language is open for that.
The only thing I would say is, Corey, you kind of brought us into the work session by saying what you said, which your motion, the way it's stated, gives full carte blanche authority to admin to decide what it's going to be and where the work goes,
Sure.
which is,
I agree with that.
yeah, and I would disagree with that.
Sure.
And yeah, you didn't want to make that decision tonight who would do it, so you have a motion on the floor to do exactly what we were going to try to discuss in a work
The
session.
first motion actually that I think is on the floor is if we're separating it or not, correct?
No, that already passed.
That passed, we
Yes.
voted,
Yes,
we
we
voted on
voted
that.
on
Okay,
that.
So
then-
now we're trying
have
to
to go to the
decide,
next
are
one.
we okay for now saying,
Well, then Corey needs to change his vote, or
No.
the way
It
it's
would be-
stated.
The motion that I seconded.
Yeah.
My understanding was that you were gonna do a carte blanche, all four of these was a consent pass.
Yeah.
And you wanted it to be discussed, the legal counsel. We've now discussed that, and now I'm making a motion that we accept it, because
This
we discussed it.
Well, then you added phrasing with it.
I added what's on this sheet.
I know, but what
No.
you added was discussion that the board wouldn't split it up. And you feel, so I don't know if that was really your discussion aspect of your motion. Could somebody repeat what the motion was?
I can repeat my motion if you'd like. I want to accept the language that is listed on our agenda to accept the district's legal counsel as it's stated there.
Okay.
I can read that for you if you'd like.
No, I can read it. The problem is that we made a statement afterwards, which is really not part of your motion.
no, I think he's just talking.
Yeah, so you kind of did a discussion part of your motion, which says we aren't splitting anything up. We leave it full discretion of the admin to decide.
That's why I believe that says that in here.
No, it says we can use any of those people.
Right, at the end, it says the director of business services.
Would it
That's what he
help,
was talking
would it help to add at the end of the motion? Okay, so we're saying we can use these law firms or anyone else we need. Would it help to add a statement about, we want to have further board discussion about the role of the law firms in consideration? So that we know that we're keeping that window open, that we want to talk about it, give you guys some background and make further decisions about that?
So I think Corey has a motion, and I would second that motion.
Accept
But
this.
with that, the understanding is I don't think we necessarily need a motion to do that, but I think we've discussed enough that we probably need a work session to decide
Mhm.
why I'm even
Why you're
pulling
talking
out in the
about
first
this.
place, which 5 people voted to pull it out, at least discussed. But Brenda, you didn't necessarily vote no, I don't think, to
No,
No,
say no to that.
she was just saying, let's go forward with this.
So-
right, because I thought it was open-ended enough.
Yeah, and what this does, I think, is obviously give those that make those decisions, pretty much the same decisions that we've been making all along. And negotiations are, for the most part, kind of wrapping up here. So I seconded that motion. And
Okay, so we have a
with it
first,
under the agreement that we do discuss it at a workshop.
Yes.
Work time.
so we have a motion and a second to accept the wording as it's stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, so we're on to the annual staff reduction resolution, and just for some background, because this looks alarming, this is something we have to do every year. We're not saying we are gonna cut staff, but we're saying if we do have to reduce staff at some point, we're giving ourselves permission to do that at any point in the year that we need to. This is a resolution, so once we have a motion in a second, we will need a roll call vote. So, can I have a motion, or if you have questions as well, after we make a motion, please ask. I need a motion for the annual staff reduction resolution.
I so move for the annual staff resolution.
We need a second. Okay, so we'll need a roll call. Corey, we'll start with you. You just would simply say aye.
Aye.
You agree. Jen?
Jen, you
And
just,
you can certainly ask questions too, Jen. Yes. Aye.
Brenda, aye.
Lori, aye.
Jeff, I.
The resolution passes for the annual staff reduction. Next, we have another resolution authorizing the superintendent and the director of business services to sign all purchase agreements. Again, this is pretty boilerplate. We do this every year. They're just the folks that sign the purchase agreements. We'll need a motion in a second, and I will vote.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the resolution authorizing purchase agreements for 23-24.
I'll second.
We'll go back to you, Corey, starting the roll call vote.
Corey, aye.
Jen Penson's the other eye.
Josh, aye.
Brenda, aye.
Lori, aye.
Jeff, I.
The resolution passes. We have another resolution, which is once again pretty boilerplate. It's authorizing the use of facsimile signatures. Brenda, did you want to, Robin, did you want to comment on this?
Sure. Sure, basically what this is doing is giving us the authority to sign a check, and after we get done with this meeting here, I will have our new chair, clerk, and treasurer sign this, and this will become our signature plate. So when we run checks, these signatures will be on it, so it just
Again,
gives us
pretty
the authority.
boilerplate.
And there's also some blank sheets in the orange manila folder. So we can get stamps of
Our
yours.
signatures.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So we need, again, a motion in a second, and we'll have to do a roll call vote for the signatures.
I so move that we have the facsimile signatures.
Need a second.
Well,
Well, one of you second.
Josh or Corey?
You can
Rock,
have it.
paper, scissors.
And then we need a roll call starting with you again, Corey.
Corey, aye.
Jen, aye.
Josh, aye.
Brenda, aye.
Lori, aye.
Jeff, I.
Motion, a resolution passes. Okay. Next, we need a resolution authorizing the administration to develop specifications to solicit bids. This has nothing to do with whether we're going to accept a bid or not accept a bid. We just have to tell them they can go out for bid. Is that right, Robin?
That's correct. It just saves us that one extra month, so we don't have to come to the board and ask to be able to go out for bid. This allows us to go out for bid, then we bring the bids back to the board to either accept or reject.
Robin, what might be an example of something we might go out to bid for?
No.
Fuel,
Great
bill.
example.
Fuel prices, fuel prices.
Construction, if we had a big construction project.
So we'll need a motion to allow them to solicit bids for this year.
I'll make the motion.
We need a second.
I'll second.
And it's a roll call vote as well. Corey?
Corey, aye.
Jen, I,
Josh, aye.
Brenda, I.
Lori, aye.
Jeff, aye.
Resolution passes to solicit bids. Now we come to the consent agenda portion of the meeting. And just for background, there are certain things you can put together just as a way to make your meetings more efficient. You can always, as you get these in board book throughout the week, you can ask questions and so on, but pretty much you're approving the minutes from last time. You're looking at claims and accounts. And again, for claims and accounts, with Brenda being our treasurer, she meets with Robin before every meeting. And if there's any questions about any checks, or any amounts, or any financial questions, she clarifies with Robin before the meeting. But you can certainly ask Brenda or Robin if you have any questions about those things.
We have a lot of questions about checks.
Talk to Robin. Yeah, if you have, yeah.
Because then I'd be able to ask her.
You can call Brenda, she'll tell you to call Robin.
And I would respectfully ask you to ask me before the meeting instead
Yeah,
of the middle of it. 'cause I might slow things
and you can ask me and I can go to Robin or go right to Robin. You don't have to go through me to ask you.
I try to have all the reports to Brenda a week before this meeting,
Yeah.
so she has time to study them and meet with Robin, so that this doesn't have to happen today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we also put in the consent agenda things like resignation, new contracts, and things like leaves of absences and things like that. So we take them as one big motion and a second for all of those consent agenda items. That's typically how we do it. So we need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Also move to accept the consent agenda.
I second it.
Any questions?
I do have a question. So this is contracts too, correct?
Yes.
So I was looking through them and do I say a name? If it's a contract, that's public record.
If it's.
That's acceptable, isn't it? If it says the name, and not a resignation, but it was a contract. And I think it was for Brandon Montagnier. Is that one of the sub hires full-time? Did we?
You would have to
Brandon
be on the board.
Montagnier.
Tier 1 secondary.
And I tried to,
Right here.
yeah, so what is that position? And I know Darcy's not here, she probably know right.
Is it quoted on the bottom of the contract?
Cheryl knows, but I didn't see it.
I don't know, I'm just looking through this folder.
Cheryl, raise her hand, I know she's, but.
Madam Chair,
Representative.
Madam Chair, she'd like to know if she's able to speak.
Jody, you may speak, is that?
No,
Cheryl.
Cheryl, I thought it was Jody, Cheryl, yes.
He is on a long-term sub job for somebody at the high school.
Oh,
I'm not specific, I don't remember if it's for a maternity leave or not, but it's a long-term sub job. And he'll be done sometime in March, end of February, beginning of
Okay, I
March.
would guess that it's for my ex-assistant then.
It's
What?
through March 3rd.
He was probably for my past assistant.
Yeah, it doesn't say on his
It looks
contract.
like it's a long-term. sub.
Building high school, that's all.
Because she got put into the hospital.
So does that answer your question?
yeah, I just wondered what the position was. Most of them say what they are now. And then for Stephanie Sargent, I know Stephanie Sargent has worked as preschool. Is that, but it looked like a part-time, or is she
Nope.
extending a contract?
ECFD, that's early childhood.
Early childhood.
Is that an extension of norm? I mean, it's an odd thing to accept or to have a contract this time of year. Was she off or?
She wasn't off. Unless it was a change.
I don't know.
Normally, we would ask HR.
Yeah. When it was just curious to me when I came across those two, because they didn't say what they were for, and I was kind of.
I wonder if the SR part of it changed, if she moved up from her original job, maybe, I could ask Dan.
SR would be school readiness.
Is that what it is? Did she change? Was she always in that?
They might have added another section, or she may have took a session over from Cinnamon, who I know is doing more of the screening portion. I can't speak completely to that, but
It's not really that big a deal. I just didn't see what it was for.
And I'm not
I know
finding it.
Stephanie has been in the district for a while.
I would guess
It was
changed.
attached, I've got
I
it.
guess it changed, but somehow it changed.
All right.
We can check on that.
That's,
You.
Would that be okay if someone got back to you, Jeff?
I was just curious.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so do we have a motion in a second? I think
Yes.
Yes. Okay, all in favor of accepting the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Again, same sign. Motion passes. There's no old business at this time. Under new business, we have listed the Minnesota High School League. The MSBA does suggest that the Minnesota High School League representative is someone you do want to add fairly quickly, but so are all of the other committee assignments. And so we have attached the board committees, and I know at orientation, we talked a little bit about what they were, sort of the time commitments, when they typically meet. But I thought it was a better idea, instead of just the acting chair, to just quickly make everyone's assignment this week. I would rather hear from you as to what your interest areas are, where you think your skill sets maybe match, or something you'd like to learn more about, and maybe even where your work schedules fit for some of these committee assignments. So what I'm gonna attempt to do is, I'd like you to email me within the next couple of weeks, and maybe I'll reach out to you and then you can answer me. And tell me what you're interested in serving on, and then we'll try to match people's interest areas the best that we can. Some things take more than one member. I won't necessarily be able to get everyone absolutely everything they wanted, but I would try to give people their top couple choices if I can, so that people are serving in areas they're interested in serving. So watch for an email from me and I'll reach out to you. And if you have any questions about the specific committees, I'll try to answer them, or people that have been on the committees can answer them, because I don't know specifics about necessarily all of them. Are there any other thoughts about that? Okay,
The goal then would be to approve these at the February 9th board meeting.
right.
So we need
So
to
we'll
table it.
do some conversation, and, yeah, we won't
Really
make any
table.
committee assignments. We just attach the chart for tonight. Okay, so that's the committee assignments. And then moving on to snow day considerations. Dean has a presentation to fill us in on.
I shared this with you through email too, so if you don't want to look up at the screens, you don't have to. You can look on your computer, you can as well. But, so what we have for the board's consideration tonight is certainly to deal with the inclement weather that we've had. We want you to just be aware of some options for the board tonight. One of the things that I would recommend that the board do tonight through formal board action would be to change the school calendar to allow for a school day on Monday, February 20th. And so I'm going to start with what I would like you to consider tonight, then I'll get into all the detail behind it, where you can ask questions and things like that, and then come back to this slide again and say, okay, so what action does the board want to take or not to take this evening? As you're aware, we've already used 3 school cancellation days this year. And so our allocation of those, once we use once we get to a 4th snow day, we are needing to make up time. And I'll get into the detail behind that here, but the state requires us to be in school per grade level at different rates for a certain amount of time and or hours, days or hours. And so my recommendation would be for the board to take action tonight to change the school calendar. And like I said, we'll get into that in a minute. It is the board's prerogative to set the school calendar and to change the school calendar in process. It's not a negotiated item. It's not something that we take a survey necessarily to change it. It's something that we set each year. When we set the calendar, previous to this, we do allow for feedback from employee groups on it if they have feedback on the calendars. For the most part, they stay the same from year to year, because we know typically you plan around where your school year starts compared to Labor Day. You look at where your fall break is, you look at where Christmas break is, you look at where spring break is, and you look at where your graduation date is, and you try to fill everything else in between. And so those things typically don't change a whole lot unless you're changing kind of your philosophy on calendars. And the calendars here in Chisago Lakes have been similar for, far more than 6 years in terms of how they're made up. And so when we went into this year, obviously we had an approved calendar for 22-23, and without knowing how everything was going to go, we thought everything would be just fine. But we've already used our 3 snow days for this year. So that's one of the board actions I would have the board consider doing. We currently have February 20th booked as a staff development day, and so we would change that to a student contact day based upon your recommendation. What that would essentially do is give us 1 more snow day in our back pocket should we have any other inclement weather from now until the end of school year, which chances are pretty good that we would. what that would allow us to do then is obviously to make up any other inclement weather day coming. If, let's say, everything breaks correctly or awesome and we don't have another cancellation from now until the end of the school year, then we would just end the school year one day earlier if we didn't use it, if that makes sense. So that's one activity or one action we'd like you to think about. The other thing, there's been lots of questions about e-learning. If you look at the KARE 11 or any of the other TV stations on a day that there's inclement weather, you'll see some schools will say, we're having an e-learning day, we're having a distance learning day, we're having a, whatever their makeup of their day is. E-learning is something that the legislature put in place quite a few years ago, saying that if your school would put a plan in place for students to be involved in learning at home or learning from home, you can take up to 5 e-learning days. Now, when you hear e-learning, that does sound like it's all electronic learning. It does encompass, if you were to give the students at the elementary level, a lot of times they'll give the students a packet of work that they could do that's actually paper and pencil. But the E part of it is that their teachers would be available during the school day for consultation from parents through email or phone call. So that's kind of the E portion of it. The other thing that we have had discussions about developing an e-learning plan for the district. We have not had one in place to this point in terms of implementing it. And so one of the things that we would have the board give us direction or at least support for an authorization for is to continue to develop the e-learning plan in consultation and collaboration with our teachers. And that's what the statute says that we should do. And so it's also not something that's a part of negotiations necessarily, but one of the things that I would recommend the board do is to put a memorandum of agreement in place with our teachers union to spell out kind of the parameters of what an e-learning day entails in terms of responsibility and commitment. The last thing is, it's unique to us in our situation is that, as you might be aware, on December 16th, we had a power outage at the primary school where we were not able to have school that day. How that impacted us was our first graders have a certain hourly requirement different than our kindergartners. And so our kindergartners are not in a position where they need to make up time, but our first grade students are. And so I'll show you the breakout on that in just a second. So we haven't solved that one yet, exactly what we can or should do to make up that time for our first graders, but we want you to be aware of it, that we need to work on it. So the next slide kind of lays out, so what does this mean? Instructional hours. So by MBE requirement, these are the total hours that are needed by grade level or band of grades. And so kindergarten, you can see is 850 hours, and seniors are 1,020. We keep record every year of how many snow days we can have without issues. And you can see for kindergartners, they can have 23 snow days without issues in terms of meeting their requirements. Let's hope we don't have 23 snow days. But you can see it breaks down differently for first through fifth graders, sixth graders, and so on. The reason why there's a difference on that, you can see even on our seniors have, they have one less day allowable for them because they're not here on our last day of school. They have graduated by that point already. So they have a little bit less wiggle room. They have 1 day less wiggle room than our 9th through 11th graders do, if that makes sense. So all the kids are at the high school, but our seniors have their graduation on a Monday evening, and then we still go to school on that Tuesday following graduation, but seniors don't, okay? So seniors have one less day to work with, so they've already used all of their snow days as well. But when you look at the breakdown of that, you can't just pick and choose which grade levels go to school that day. We have typically, if we're gonna add another school day to the end of the year, we have had all the students come to it. And so, other than seniors if they've already graduated, okay? And so we have to keep track of that and to ensure that we've met all of our instructional hours. If we don't meet our instructional hours and days, we don't get state funding for that. And so that's a challenge for us. So we could have a 4th snow day and choose not to make it up at all, but we're not gonna get the per pupil funding for that. And so obviously you wanna get in all of your days and hours. And you have days to work with. We essentially have a minimum of 3 days to work with for all of our grade levels. However, we've already used all 3, if that makes sense. Okay. And so that's the why, all right? And the next slide then shows kind of our current status. So we're out of snow days. We talked about the primary school being short 1 day because of the power outage. if we have no additional cancellations this year, we're fine other than first grade. The administration has had one meeting to discuss and understand our current status and consider updating an e-learning plan that was developed collaboratively with teachers in 2020. The administration did meet the notification requirements set for the statute in terms of notifying students and families of our e-learning plan, as our plan has been posted on our website since March of 2020. Michelle can click on that link and take you to what our draft plan was at that time. And so it's been posted out there on our website, and it talks about what is an e-learning day, why is Chisago Lakes implementing the e-learning day, what do e-learning day lessons look like, and then student expectations. Now, this was developed in March of 2020, but has not been developed further because at that time, the pandemic hit, and we no longer continue to pursue getting this really drilled down to the nitty-gritty of what would actually happen during the day. So when we got to our third snow day like we did last week, and now we're thinking, okay, would we consider implementing e-learning? We needed to, one, verify that we did put that notification on our website, which we did do. And then number two, we need to start thinking about what our next steps would be. And so we have this bid in place so we can continue to pursue it. And if you go back to the slide deck, we're gonna continue to pursue this with your authorization to do that. The administration has had one meeting with teacher leadership. We've got teacher leadership here in the back. We met this afternoon to just talk about our current status. And then I did reach out to MDE to see what we can do about primary school, to get some more definition as to what that would mean, because that's one grade level at one school, and it's kind of like, what kind of provision is there for us to work with to account for the hours that they are short, if that makes sense.
And I think it's important what you stated to me earlier is that even though the kids weren't able to go to school that day, the teachers did work.
Yep.
So it's not a matter of the teachers needing to make up the day. It's really the kids need to make up the day. So we're gonna have to get creative with that.
Yeah, that morning was one where we understood that the power was not coming back on time at 5:25 a.m. And we have staff showing up for kids club at 6 a.m. And so there was really not much time to do a whole lot with, other than to say there's no way we can have school at primary school. And Principal Bryce was able to communicate with teachers, hey, we're not having school today, but you can continue to work and plan and grade and do the things that you can do remotely. So we did do that day.
Does the whole day have to be made up in one full day or is it part, it's not even part of the day, it's one full day?
Yeah,
And
there's
how many minutes of instruction is that for 8 hours? What do they say?
Well, and again, it's based on how many hours our school is, so I can't remember exactly what primary school's hours are, but I want to say they're like 9:05 to.
So it's from beginning to end, student contact, it's not like instructional time with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where we're currently at. Next slide lays out what's in the statute. So a day means a day where school offers full access to online instruction provided by students, individual teacher. You can have up to 5 of those a year. And again, online instruction really means online availability. You need to be available for the students. So for instance, at the high school, they would have all their lessons available in Schoology, the apparatus that our students access in order to get into their classroom and basically see what assignments are there. You can put videos in there, you can put slide decks in there, you can put notes in there and other things for students to be able to learn from. And so we make that available to them. Part of the plan is you need to adopt it as a school board in consultation with the teachers and representatives. The plan must include accommodations for students without internet access, for limited access devices at home. So there are some equity issues with that. We know in our district, there are areas of our district that do not have great Wi-Fi coverage, those types of things. And so part of that provision is to allow an opportunity for students to be able to do things offline too, which is why we would likely develop something that students could do without a device necessarily. Part of our plan is to allow students some days after the event to be able to make that up, but we haven't detailed out our full plan yet. We want to bring that to you. We must provide options for students with disabilities as well. We need to provide an annual notice, which we have done. And then we need to provide a daily notice. And so if you see what kind of happens on these snow days last week is, school might say we're 2 hours late, and then they might announce that they're going to e-learning, which is an example of one of our neighboring schools this past week. And so we typically make our notification of closing of school by 5 a.m. The the calls usually go out by about 5:10, where everyone in the district is notified that we are closing school that day. So if we were to close school and say we're going to an e-learning day, we would have met that requirement to get at least 2 hours of notification to both our staff and our parents and families. Okay. And then teacher access, teacher must be accessible both online and by telephone during the normal school hours. And so we would set up in our plan, here's how you could access your teacher should you have questions or need information about the lessons that have been pushed out for the day. And so that's the state statute requirement on that. So our next steps would be to work on an e-learning plan that we bring back for you. We have the current one that we showed you on the website. We also need time to develop that final plan for the remainder of the 22-23 school year. We would need time to develop a memorandum of agreement with our teachers, which would just lay out the parameters that we're working within. And we'd like to bring these things back to you in February for a vote. So bring back 2 pieces, basically the MOA and the final e-learning plan. Our timing on this, or kind of how it would work right now, is we'd like our administration to do a little bit of work on providing clarity to the kind of the draft plan. And then as soon as that's done, we'd like to have our principals start working with our building leadership teams at each site to be able to work through all the specifics to that site. So high school, middle school, and the other schools, obviously, with the general parameters for all schools, but then something that might be more specific for that school. But our goal is to keep it as consistent as we can. K-12, so there's not big variations in what the responsibilities are for teachers. And then we also need to, obviously in that, consider our support staff, what they might or might not be able to do when we have an e-learning day. Because if you're a paraprofessional who works directly with a one-on-one with the students, you may be able to work one-on-one with a student through some sort of virtual means. You may not be able to. And so is that person working that day, not working that day? Do we have other work for them that day? I don't know that any schools kind of figured that out perfectly, how you do that with all support staff, but many schools are utilizing e-learning across the state, and we believe that we can put together a plan that balances, doing the very best that we can for children, but also keeping in mind the working environment for our staff in that, to make it something that's reasonable and doable for them as well. So then the last slide, we do need to work on primary school makeup, and so I've told you a little bit about that and the background behind that one. The options on that we'll need to determine yet, and we'll come back to you with that. And then one more slide, I believe. So again, the recommendation that we have for you tonight is I would like you to consider taking board action on making February 20th student contact day. If that is the action, then we'll send out an email to the district, both internally and externally tomorrow, to say we're having school on February 20th. And so it gives people about 5 weeks to adjust to that, because there may be families, staff, and others who have made plans different for February 20th. And then we certainly are able to get information to our working groups that they need to be available to work that day. We would like you to at least authorize us to continue to move forward with putting together an e-learning plan that meets the state statute. And then we're making you aware of what's happening at primary school and what we need to do. So with that, I'll take any questions. We'll go back to any slides you'd like to revisit or anything like that, but that's what we're asking you to do.
Question, what historically, I can't imagine this is the first time that Minnesota school has had to deal with this type of a situation. Before e-learning, what happened? Did they just extend the school year, or did they just eat the free, way to get money that day? Or?
You typically would extend the school year, or if you had provision within your contract where you possibly, or within your calendar where you had a staff development day that you were willing to turn into a teacher or a student contact day, you would do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said that it was state funding. Are we talking like by the day you lose the state funding? We're talking about, how does that work?
Yeah, I think I'll let Robin kind of chime in a little bit.
Yeah, it's by the day. I mean, there's a formula for each child and actually how many days they're actually in our district. So it would depend on that.
Okay.
It's not like you don't get any, it's just that day.
But that's significant.
Yes.
I know authority lies with the school board to decide these 3 things. What was bargaining unit's response to, especially the change of the staff day to a student contact day?
Well, certainly with Sheila and Cheryl right in the room, they tell me if I missed anything, but we met this afternoon. I mean, one of the questions with that staff development today is what were we planning to do with staff development that day? The primary question that came out was, what are we going to do with our letters training? So we had some letters training, which is our language essentials for the teachers of reading and spelling. That was the literacy initiative that we've had where many of our staff have been trained and continue to be trained on letters. What we have talked about, and Sarah Schmidt, our Director of Teaching and Learning, has suggested this, that we're able to condense that training to kind of, drill it down to what's truly essential and not add additional responsibility or time to the teachers to be able to do that. So would that be accurate, Cheryl? So we believe that we can work through that issue would be the central issue that was identified. I know you had a rep assembly meeting today. Was there any other issues that were identified related to February 20th as a potential student contact day? So
And contract would just apply to if we had a fourth day for food service and paras and custodians. Assuming
if
or
we,
whatever the contract states then.
yeah, if they had a fourth day, they would obviously have to come back in June or something like that if we extended it then. So this would be them coming on February 20th. And we would use that day then, I guess if a snow day comes from now until February 20th, we'll use that date.
Yeah.
If we don't use by February 20th, one comes in March, then we've already got a day in our back pocket.
Yeah.
Or if the end of the school year comes and we've had no additional days, then we just end the school one day earlier.
Yeah, I was just thinking more like the e-learning question instead of changing the staff day. For food service, obviously, if we had another snow day, then I'm assuming they have provisions in their contract for a snow day and they would apply. Unless we can use paras, like you said, one-on-ones or those types of things. And custodians a lot of times get in anyway. I don't know how that works, but.
Well, we've had, I know, and I think it was in 2018, we ended up with some folks that had asked because they missed opportunities to work, because is there some things we need to do at the end of the year from our support staff groups. And so we did, have some jobs and things that could be done in June that they could continue to earn paid for. But as you know, from the local 284 negotiations, they have 3 in the paraprofessional contract and that they can use sick time for. And then, if there's anything that's provided beyond that. Now, in the primary school situation, with that power being out that day, I did authorize, and I have the ability to do that the paraprofessionals would receive a 4th day at the primary school in that situation only, because there was really no option for us to do anything different. So we could authorize a 4th day for them in that circumstance.
So they have 3 days in their contract to authorize a 4th day with using a sick time. We're in the midst of that contract, so that's why it kind of stood out to me, I guess. We had an e-learning day, so.
Adding the 20th would solve the issue with first grade. And that would buy you time for everybody else.
It still wouldn't really resolve it. It would resolve it if we didn't have any additional snow days this year, but then let's say then if we didn't do that and the rest of the schools not coming back on June 6th, we wouldn't bring first grade back. We've got to find a different alternative for first grade ultimately.
But you want to try and couple the 20th with the e-learning plan, because you would have the e-learning plan in place.
Right.
To attend school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the thought on that is providing the 20th as another student contact day is really kind of a put it in your back pocket, short-term kind of solution. Like we could have that to deal with, and that gives us time to put e-learning into place. And once we have e-learning into place, then that's something that we can utilize up to 5 additional days once it's in place.
Seems like everything's taken care of with the exception of the first graders and that.
Yeah.
I mean, the teachers already worked or were there, so wait, you got any?
Well, Ms. Sprague provided a good idea that we can explore, so I'm gonna look into that and see, but there is an opportunity there. If we give students work to do, then they
You
need.
kind of e-learning on just for them?
Yeah, just for that first grade, and then they would need access to a teacher or teachers. So how would you do that? We could potentially do that through substitute teachers on that day. So that's something that Cheryl was able to, we kind of work through this afternoon. If that's something that we can do, that makes sense that we try to do that, because our teachers then could for instance, March 25th is a staff development day. Our teachers are scheduled for staff development that day. They can still continue to do staff development if we provided e-learning for first graders only on that day with substitute teachers as the potential resource for any questions or concerns that come up during the day. That's a potential that I need to explore when I get an opportunity to get on the phone with MPE. Say, is that something we could do? Or do they have other ideas for us? Because it's a unique situation to find ourselves in. So the goal here, again, overall is to provide the best opportunities we can for students, but also work within not only contractual, but also just what's reasonable to try to accomplish on an e-learning day. But ultimately, part of what we have to look at is it best to be in school on June 7th or 8th, or is it better to try to do something during the confines of the school calendar? We think that the 20th would be a really solid day for students and staff on learning and that type of thing. Be a good option. And we've got a lot of winter yet to go.
So the first thing we need, Dean, if I'm hearing you right, is we need a motion and a second to alter the school calendar so that February 20th would come. It's no longer a staff development day, but it would be an instructional day. And in the event we don't have another snow day, school would then end the day earlier. So we need that first, unless there's more questions about that.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to turn the February 20th day into a student contact day. Is that adequate?
Good. We need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. Motion passes. And then we need to authorize the administration to work with the staff to develop an e-learning plan going forward. So if we do have additional snow days, we have the option for e-learning. Does that authorization also need a motion? Or are we just authorizing you to do that?
Just want to make sure you're aware of that. We want to, certainly have your blessing and continue to work with them. So.
Well, I give my thumbs up there. So no motion.
Okay. And then you've made us aware of the first grade and you're talking to MD and you'll update us on it.
February 9th will be hopefully when we can bring all these things to you.
Okay.
If we don't have that ready for February 9th, then we would probably need consideration for a special board meeting sometime in February to get whoever is available together to approve an e-learning plan. So if we have it ready for you on February 9th, we certainly will. But if we don't, we'll need to talk about that on February 9th.
Sounds good. Thanks for all the information. Clear as mud, right, everybody?
That's pretty clear.
Okay, all right. We are moving on. We have donations. We have a $5,000 donation from Mark and Heather Zaruba and a $5,000 donation from Chad and Jessica Johnson and C&J Restaurants, LLC Northern Lake Tavern. Both donations for the Chisago High School softball program. So we need a motion and a second to accept these grants. And if anyone wanted to give further information, you certainly could, or we can just accept the grants.
Sorry, I want to add in there, I believe on board book, I do see a third one in board book, correct?
The
Yeah, it's a-
$2,500.
It's a second.
It's
Oh,
separate.
okay.
It's a separate.
Gotcha.
It's for the same
I do
project.
see that. You guys want to talk a little bit?
I will so move that we accept it and then we can talk about it.
Okay, so you're moving that we accept the grant. Anyone have questions or?
No, discussion.
Did you second?
Yep.
I gotta write this down. Or you're taking
Okay.
care.
So we have a motion. and a second.
So we've been trying for years to improve the softball complex, and we've done several projects out there that have all been funded by whether it be Fast Pitch or the Booster Club. We've done a lot of work out there. And this year in particular, we're going to be putting we'll call it a crow's nest or a press box above the varsity dugout. And the idea is to have more of a permanent structure, to have announcements, so game announcements done. There should be a storage unit in there so that we can house the equipment that the high school activities office has purchased. Because right now it's pretty expensive sound equipment that has to sit outside. Not that it sits outside always, but when I'm outside announcing the games and all of a sudden it starts to rain and I gotta go and find a tarp or something to cover up, this would alleviate at least that. But we're kind of excited about it. The donations that are listed there, Mark and Heather Zaruba. Mark is, I believe, the president of the Wyoming, First State Bank of Wyoming. So him and his wife have 2 daughters that are in the middle of high school softball, but they both played in our youth fast pitch program, and now they're both on our varsity softball team. So they're a very giving family. They were happy to donate that money to the project. And then Chad and Jessica Johnson both have a daughter that is on the varsity softball team as well. And they both own 2 different restaurants. And so they are also matching that donation. I can speak to the next one, and that would be the donation from the Booster Club. And then there will be another donation, 2 more donations coming in the future. So all told, the project will be paid for with 0 tax money. Obviously, I think that the district has to take on that maintenance afterwards, but anybody have any questions as to?
Who builds it?
Who's building it? So right now, we're working with Andy Wilhelmy from the district, and he's consulting with the district's
We had 2
architect.
bids.
Yeah.
We went out for bid.
Oh, okay.
And so,
Quotes, sorry,
Quotes.
quotes. We went out for
so a construction company, I think that they're
Home
local
bids.
construction.
So does it cover it or
Yes.
close?
Oh, yeah. So we're excited.
Generous donations, those are very generous. So we do have a motion and a second to accept the $5,000 donation from the Zarubas and the Johnsons. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Again, same sign.
I'm gonna graciously abstain because there could be a conflict of interest, but I am very happy and that they donated. It'll be a nice facility.
Brenda Carlson abstains. Okay, and so the separate one for $2,500 from the softball booster will also need a motion and a second on that one and a vote.
I make a motion to accept the softball booster donation.
I will second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign.
And again, I'm going to abstain.
And Brenda abstains. Motion passes. Okay, we're moving on to the superintendent search. And originally, when we spoke of this, we talked about, we need to discuss further, if we're even gonna hire a superintendent search firm, or if we're gonna try to do it internally. Since then, our director of human resources has resigned, and so it changes the picture a little bit. It's kind of hard to do an internal search for superintendent when you don't have an HR person in place. Now, it's posted, we're hoping to hire an HR person, but we all received materials, and I asked Jody to also give them to us in paper in case we wanted to look at things further tonight, and they're all on board with this as well. And so since all of you have had the materials, had a chance to review, I think I'm just gonna open it up for discussion, first of all, that doing it internally versus the hiring the search firm. And then if you had any thoughts as you looked over the materials, I'd just open it for any comments or recommendations any of you have.
I think it makes sense to have the professionals involved in the process. I don't know that we want to try and navigate the process on our own with 3 board members.
At December's meeting, when it was the last meeting with the old board members, our old business director here was here, Peggy, and she came up to me afterward and she said, just to remind you, Lori, when you do these searches, it takes an enormous amount of hours and work for our district office staff. And then you take our HR director out of it. I kind of agreed that even if I would consider the internally doing it, I mean, we're gonna have Robin do all that by herself right now. So, I mean, I think there's a point to be made that I think our scenario changed with our HR director exiting.
I think it changed even before I don't think it changed. I think our district office has bare minimum people as it's, and to put this on them again with everything else they're doing, I don't think is fair. I think we need to hire a professional to do this. And now with Darcy leaving, obviously that makes that even huge, And there's 2 that we just, MSBA is our our organization. They do a great job. They have a guarantee. If the superintendent they hire leaves in a year, they'll do the next search for free. So I think that's a fair group to look at. And then the Big River is the one that came in with the lowest bid. I think either one of them would be fine. I think the other ones you get too national for us. I think they're a little too big. But that's my take.
I'm very new to this. Can you give me a broad overview of what a superintendent search would look like?
Sure. I mean, some of these sort of spell out the timeline, but I'll make it brief, but anyone can add. So they help you, first of all, set your timeline. Okay, what has to happen this month in order to get someone in place? What has to happen here, here, here? They help us do things like they can conduct a survey of our staff, of our community, saying, what are you looking for in a superintendent? What are some key things, that are setting your direction for hiring a superintendent? They do things like place in the ad, receive all the applicant stuff, make sure all the applicants have all the pieces in. They have their letters of recommendation in. Have we done a background check? Do we have their employment history? All the things they need to get in, or keep track. Does everyone have everything in? They help us with things like, generally in the past, we've had committees. We've had a community committee, we've had a staff committee, we've had the board. And we've had our 3 finalists go through all those committees. So they help things like setting up the organization of how the 3 candidates are going to rotate through committees in a day or 2 or 3. They help us go through questions. What can be asked legally? What cannot be asked legally? Are we asking the same questions of every candidate to keep it legal? All the legalities of it, and there's more than you think there are. So they help with that. They help you, really the board decides what you want the posting to say. They can help with that, but it's our decision what we're looking for. They can help with any parts of the contract we have questions about, even though it's our final decision what we want, what we don't want. They help with things like, okay, what else, you guys? I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
A lot of organization, a lot of vetting. I think they can also vet and have ideas. People are.
And a lot of times they have outreach to other candidates, like maybe someone who wouldn't normally see the posting and apply. They might be, oh, I happen to know this superintendent who's leaving their job in this little town in Minnesota. Maybe they'd be interested. I'll reach out to them. So they have outreach to increase the candidate pool. Be another thing I would say.
Yeah, so as I was looking through the proposals, it looks like every one of them had different websites, basically, they post the position on.
Yes,
Again, I'm not super familiar with superintendent hiring.
right.
So as far as these different organizations, do some of them have a bigger pool than others? As far as who they're presenting?
Brenda did say though, 2 of those are kind of national, and they're kind of,
Okay.
they'll look all over the place, but you certainly want the position listed as many places as you can, but I would agree with what you said there. I kind of prefer those 2 companies too, but you certainly, I always think like this is a marriage, and you're not really looking for 10 brides, you're only looking for 1. And so you really are looking for 1 person, and that person could come from who knows where, So you do want that information out there as much as possible. I don't mean bride or groom or whatever, but you really are making a marriage of sorts. It's kind of like trying to buy a house. You look at all these houses and you pick one. And so how do we get that information? That's a critical thing. How do you get the most information out to the most people?
Right.
And what's the best way to do that? With somebody or with just ourselves? Although we're going to use organizations that get that out there for us. I want it to be fiscally sound too, and I think Brenda, you brought it up, MSBA kind of is our go-to a little bit, and the other company, and they're more local, and what is the most reasonable way to get the best person? We certainly aren't flush sitting, and I don't know, what is the total cost? I saw a lot of costs.
So
What
Big
is
River
it?
is 9,300. And then MSBA is 13,900. I think they both might have a guarantee, but I know they have.
I know.
So I look at those 2.
And it says up to 13, but.
I don't think 13.5 is a pile of money for somebody that, is responsible for all the things they're responsible for.
Is there anyone opposed to using a superintendent search firm? Okay, good questions. Any other questions? One other thing I would invite, if Robin's comfortable, or if there's anyone in the room who's had experience with either one of these companies, sometimes I like to hear, like, have you used somebody? How's it gone? Maybe stick to the positives.
Yeah, in a previous district I was in, we did use MSBA for a superintendent search. I mean, it went well. And I also, with Big River, I do know Bruce Miles. I haven't worked with him in a superintendent search, but I worked with him on other things. He's highly respected. So, and those are the two you've talked about already. I would be comfortable with either one of them.
What was Bruce Miles? How did he get into this business?
He's a superintendent.
Was he a superintendent?
He was he actually was a special education director in Cambridge prior to your time. Yeah, he was ran their level 3 or level 4 program there. He was an adjunct, or he was a professor at St. Cloud State University for quite a bit of time as well. I'm not sure, did he put any of his bio in there? I guess I didn't look.
I was just
I don't
looking.
think so.
But he's been involved in education for a lot of years, so.
Oh, it does say. He's the owner and CEO of Big River Group. He's been a paraprofessional, a regular education, special education teacher, a school administrator. For 5 years, he was the assistant professor at St. Cloud State and taught graduate doctoral coursework in the areas of educational administration, leadership, planning, finance, and personnel. He's a national level facilitator, presenter, and trainer in areas of strategic planning, school improvement, organizational conflict, and difficult employees. And it might be tempting, I know it's tempting to think, well, if you go with one of the big national companies, you're gonna get all these national applicants. In my experience, just in my experience in the past, we've had a couple national applicants, but then you run into things like they're not familiar with a lot of the Minnesota school laws, procedures, maybe they don't have the correct certification. I mean, I know it's tempting, and then they're not networked at all if they need support and mentoring. So I know it's tempting to think, let's outreach to everyone in the country. But I found that a lot of times the national candidates haven't worked out. Maybe that's just chance so far, and they just haven't had a familiarity. Yes, Cory.
Dean, how did you hear about the Chisholm superintendent?
Last time you did it without a search firm, so that was through the MSBA postings. So
Just saw the posting.
So we just posted previously for Dean's job was just
pretty much everybody's
Just
involved
out
on
of
the
the press.
MSBA website. Actually, MSBA sends out when they're open.
But I think what's gonna be different this year is the competitiveness. They're not out there. Because
Like the
of so many,
superintendent
yeah,
candidates.
because so many people have left the position. So it's gonna be a lot harder to find, I think, that for both positions as far as I'm concerned. That would be the only difference, I think, between then and now. They've already, what was the thing? 11 were
Last
already
year-
open and,
12 or 13 that have already been opened
Yeah.
in the upper part of Minnesota, and some are already filled.
Yeah.
So,
What do you think, Dean? What do you think is the best way to go about
I think the two that you mentioned are both. Go wrong.
So you think it's a good idea to have well, I know Darcy's gone and shortly, and I know that there's a lot of responsibility on people that are here. Do you think that's a good way to
Absolutely.
is use?
Yeah.
You prefer that? I mean, you think that's a better idea, more prudent than maybe just trying to do it ourselves? I'm just putting the options out there.
Well, I think because the circumstances that the district finds themselves in right now without an HR director dictates that it's really not feasible to think that it can be done within the district. But I think both options you considered are, and just today, 2 more openings came out. So I mean, they're going out fast. If you use Bruce Miles, he will obviously post in all the places that MSBA would post as well. But MSBA is the primary posting site for all superintendents in Minnesota. So,
Who do you think's better?
that's hard to say.
I know you're
I think it depends.
careful saying something
Well, I think
like
you
that,
just need to-
whether you want to answer it. But
I mean, I think both of them would fit our needs well.
So how do we decide? If we decide, it seems like the consensus may be to go with a company. I have some reservations about doing that, but it's really not a lot of money compared to things we spend money on to get the kind of person that we're looking for. So how do we decide which company is the best company if we decide that, well, that's the route we want to go?
Well, if MSBA is the main spot that people look, why would we go with someone and then they're gonna go post on their site anyway? That's my thing. I think MSBA does a good job and we know the people and that you can call and ask questions at any time. I mean, just pick, but that would be where I lean to because of those reasons.
One of the things, we all have access to MSBA anytime we want, whether we're a company, we individually, maybe, I don't know how that would work, but.
I mean, I've had such good experiences with MSBA, their trainings. Anytime I've called and said, I have a question about how to do it, and they get back to you, and they're just sort of everyday people. You know, talk above your head, they just want to help. Their organization is about building strong school boards, but that's, out of fairness, I don't know this gentleman. I don't know his reach. I just don't know that about him. So,
Was that the first one that Darcy had provided? At least to us three, I don't know.
sorry, I don't remember the order.
Well, I just remember one of them, there was a bunch of misspellings in the letter that they sent. I just thought it was really unprofessional. So if that weighed in on a decision on a company, I don't know if it was that one in particular, but I think so because I don't recall it being a national.
Okay, let's quick do an edit of the brochure
Well, right,
and see.
I mean, we're talking about, that's,
So you think it was MSBA or you think it was Big?
no, it wasn't, I think it was Big River,
Big River?
but I don't want to accuse them.
I don't think-
I just would have to review my email from Darcy.
Is this something we decided tonight?
I think the faster we move on this, the better we're gonna be in a position.
I feel nervous even
Yeah.
having waited, but we decided with new board members coming, we really wanted you guys to be able to weigh in on the decision. I really would like to get it posted if we can.
At least get it moving.
Unless we just,
Yeah, we can, I think it's probably a bigger company, but we can, how quick can we post it and what needs to happen to post it?
Depends if you get the company.
Yeah.
The company's.
Company does.
Company does, yeah.
So you need to pick a company.
I make a motion that we hire MSBA to do our search.
I second that.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. Motion passes to hire MSBA to conduct our superintendent search.
So some other discussion.
Now, is there someone in the district office we need to ask to instigate this? Or do I, as the board chair, instigate this since we don't have an HR person here that's in here? Or what would you suggest, Robin and Dean?
We can start on it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, and just let us know, as you proceed, what you need from us as a school board.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a Clem seniority report that needs board approval. And again, this is something that we approve every year. Is there any comment necessary this year on the seniority report?
Follow the similar process we had in the past, and we make the notification and post it for the union to review and give final edits to. And Darcy put it on here saying that all of that process has been followed, and this is the final version of it, so.
Okay, so we just need a motion and a second to approve the Clem seniority report.
Make a motion to approve the Clem seniority report.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions about this?
What I imagine that is talking about is higher date. Where people fall on a senior list.
It's really kind of critical because actually when I was a teacher, I looked at the date early on. I said, well, that date's wrong. And I actually had it moved up about a month and a half earlier. So, but when you do that 20 years into it, you have to go back into your file to see any documentation of when you were hired. But we did move it, and it really is critical, especially for retirement, or some things like that. And seniority, so bumping rights is pretty critical, so.
We have a motion and a second. Do we vote? No.
We haven't voted.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Again, same sign. Motion passes. Unless there's anything else, we need a motion and second to adjourn.
I so move that we.
We We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against, same sign. Motion passes. Nice job, everybody.